There are some secrets that we keep deep within, just waiting for the perfect opportunity to come bursting forth. Jacob as well. My secret was Jacob. Allow me to present myself. Hi, I'm Candace and I'm 50 years old. However, I refuse to conform to any stereotypes about women in their 50s. The years of self-care have paid off, and I now boast a lengthy, fit body. The smoothness of my skin and the elegant way my blonde hair cascades past my shoulders give me an irresistible allure. What I dress conveys a great deal about who I am. A woman who revels in the spotlight, captivating and passionate. I am lonely on the inside though. Cooper, my 55-year-old husband, acts far older than his years. I feel practically invisible due to his lack of attention. He spends his mornings engrossed in his newspaper. During the evenings, he pays little attention to me, and is instead engrossed in political talk shows. I am nothing more than a specter, a faded flower in his universe. My clothes, my words, and my emotions are irrelevant. To him I am nothing. However, Jacob is totally unique. A few years back, something started to stir within of me when Jacob, Cooper's 29-year-old nephew, moved to our neighborhood. Height, charisma, and maturity all describe him. His eyes have a hint of melancholy, but they also have a kind, gentle romanticism that makes you want to look closer. What a contrast he was. Just being in his presence restored my youth. As opposed to Cooper, Jacob never failed to notice me. That focus frightened and thrilled me at the same time. My pulse rate and breathing rate increased whenever he was in the vicinity. On the other hand, this was my secret. I used to choose out my clothes with great care in the hopes that Jacob would notice me. Skirts that showed off my legs and dresses with bare shoulders. The look in his eyes told me that I had an impact on him. However, it remains unchanged. Our relationship was marked by an unsaid boundary, until that fateful day comes. Like clockwork, Cooper was absent. If not at work, then anywhere. Earlier that day, I had taken a little nap in my room. I was exhausted, but my weariness was intensified by the isolation I experienced. A little dress with spaghetti straps was what I was wearing, the kind that accentuated my curves and gave me an air of refined sophistication. The thought of shutting the door slipped my mind as I dozed off. I had no idea. That day Jacob would visit the house. I had no idea. Jacob had arrived in search of Cooper. Despite his knocking, I was oblivious to it. In case of an emergency, Jacob used the key that Cooper had given him to unlock the door. He went upstairs after hearing nothing inside. I was staring at him from the moment he entered the bedroom. He entered the room stealthily, knowing full well that I was probably sleeping. I had dozed off. In my slumber, my dress had ridden up just a bit and my hair had fallen over the pillow. I failed to perceive Jacob's approach. Not until I could feel his specter brush over my cheek. I looked up and saw him standing there. Jacob observed me from his perch on the bedside. Something else than astonishment or adoration was visible in his eyes. A tug. A mix of longing and allure. I felt my heart racing. Was it astonishment or embarrassment? I muttered to Jacob, my voice quivering. "Candace, I apologize for waking you," he whispered gently. Still he stared fixedly at me the whole time. I went in search of Cooper and I found the door open. Sometimes words fail you, time stands still. And the sole sensation is the weight of the air between two people. I couldn't tear my gaze away from Jacob as our eyes met. A feeling of comfort washed over me as I registered his nearness. He refused to retreat. On the contrary, he continued to advance, maybe unconsciously. As soon as we fell silent, the space took on a new vibe. There was a line, and we were both aware of it as we stood at its border. Remember that line? Breakage was imminent. Jacob uttered a word that sent shivers down my spine as he bolted out of the room. "Impressive, my dear." I wasn't sure I had heard him right at first because his voice was so weak and trembling. I raised my head and apologized. Maybe I was hoping for a reassurance of some kind. But he decided to change his words. "You appeared stunning when you slept." "Excuse me for interrupting you," he said as he quickly turned away and bolted from the room. There was a real fear that my heart may explode from the intense beating. I had no idea that being in Jacob's company could have such a profound effect on me until that very second. His speech lingered in my thoughts even as the room grew silent. This was just the beginning. It was impossible. I finally felt like someone was responding to my emotions. The anticipation of what's to come was overwhelming. Join my channel, subscribe, and enable notifications to hear first-ever confessions like this, and to show your support. Believe me when I say this is going to be an exciting tale like any other you've ever heard. Our unique yet inexplicable attraction to one another intensified over the next several days. It started one night as we were putting away dinner. In the meantime, Jacob brought the plates to the kitchen and I cleaned the table. I attempted to ignore the unease I felt whenever I heard his footsteps following behind me. Our hands brushed against each other as he placed the plates on the counter. I felt an electric charge that words couldn't describe the moment that one touch happened. I stopped breathing for what felt like an eternity. Like her, he appeared to halt. However, he proceeded to walk away as if nothing had transpired. Subsequently, Jacob materialized from behind me as I sank my hand into one of the upper kitchen shelves to retrieve a plate. In response to my arm gesture, he leaned over and grabbed the dish. The distance between us seemed to vanish at that very second. The nape of my neck felt his breath on it. The intensity of the moment was nearly intolerable, and our arms were practically entangled as he reached up. Our reactions were identical as our palms touched on the shelf. My eyes were closed and my breath was held. The sound of Jacob inhaling deeply was audible to me. Our stares locked as I blinked open my eyes. We remained silent for those brief moments. However, his gaze said a great deal more than any words could. I barely made out a thank you, as my voice trembled. Thanking him for whatever was a mystery to me. As he stepped back, Jacob kept staring at me but he said nothing. I felt a surge of comfort just looking into their eyes. I saw Jacob's vehicle pull up to the house one day, and I knew Cooper was not there. In my chest, my heart started to thump. I hadn't anticipated this type of moment. Before answering the door, I paused to take a deep breath as he pounded on it. As the sun began to set, Jacob stood there, staring directly into my eyes. As he spoke, his voice remained steady and low. He called me Candace and my name sounded like a tune in his mouth. I was at a loss for words for a second. My pulse was pounding. I said, "Yes, Jacob," with a little quiver in my voice. Jacob kept staring straight ahead. "I know," he told Candace. I drew my brows in confusion. "Do you know what?" With my heart pounding in my ears, I inquired. With the door ajar, Jacob stepped closer to me, his shadow lengthening in the wan light. "Cooper's lack of interest in you and complete disregard for you is something I've known for some time." He added that there is more. The mood was immediately lifted by his remarks. I attempted to avert my gaze, but the unwavering resolve in Jacob's eyes kept me rooted. "Is there more? Can you explain?" Asking was a struggle for me. The words hardly escaped my lips. Jacob paused briefly before continuing after taking a deep breath. "It seems to me, Candace, that he is unworthy of you. Your sorrow is plainly visible in your eyes. Even now, you can't keep it hidden." As an odd sensation developed inside of me, his words lingered in the atmosphere, gradually enveloping me like a hefty blanket. To hear Jacob say it aloud was something I hadn't expected, but he was right. Jacob hesitated for an instant, his expression shifting from one of resolve to a trace of shame. He apologized to Candace in a voice that was composed but slightly quivering. "Came on too suddenly and too quickly. In a more relaxed setting, perhaps we could have this conversation." His unanticipated remorse stunned and consoled me in an indescribable manner. The door was widened by my movement as I moved aside. As I gestured for him to come inside, I pointed to the living room. Jacob shifted to the couch, however the subtle expression of unease remained. As he started to talk, he clasped his hands together and took a big breath. "I have been suppressing this for some time, Candace. It has been quite challenging for me, but I gathered the strength to come here today. All things are known to me." With a mix of intrigue and apprehension, I fixed my gaze on him. "Is that it?" I inquired. Jacob maintained constant eye contact throughout his speech. "More than that, Cooper's callousness, his abandonment, his refusal to acknowledge your existence, etc. Candace, I believe you are stunning. Whenever I felt a stirring within me, including that day when I watched you sleep and every time before that, you've forever held an allure for me. My feelings for you have grown so strong that I can no longer contain them." The room resounded with the weight and significance of his words. As I leaned in closer to him and licked my lips, my heart raced. Jacob, I said so softly that no one could hear me. For some time now I have felt the same way toward you. The way those unplanned encounters with you have made me feel has both terrified and delighted me. You are mine, Jacob. I can't handle being alone any longer. Something piqued Jacob's interest while my remarks hung in the background. Without a second's thought, I delicately removed the garment straps from my shoulders. As the fabric cascaded down my body and gathered at my feet, I stood there completely exposed as Jacob's intense stare engrossed me. We remained still for that very second, and our silence conveyed everything we wanted to say but couldn't find the words to express. Jacob wasted no time in drawing near as he drew nearer to us. All the stress I'd been carrying around vanished into flames of intense warmth the moment our lips touched. Everything we had repressed for so long burst forth in the kiss. I was completely engulfed in his touch, unable to think. As our kisses deepened, his hands delicately traced my waist, drawing me nearer. It seemed as though he wished to eliminate any distance between us. My mind became a haze as I dissolved into him, giving in entirely to the experience. As if the world had stopped being outside of us, Jacob's warmth made every detail of that moment clear and real. I sank into the couch behind me, but our kisses never ceased. With his lips brushing against mine like an unquenchable flame, Jacob leaned over me. As his hands became more forceful, I could feel his breath against my flesh. We drew nearer to each other as he delicately ran his fingers down my back, our bodies harmonizing in the process. Jacob momentarily retreated, but only for a brief moment. He released his grip on my waist, but his gaze remained fixed on me the entire time. With an air of effortless charisma and self-assurance, he leaned over and put one knee on the couch next to me. Our gazes met as we hung above me. His intense and passionate stare conveyed an overwhelming sense of need. Being thus near to Jacob reawakened a long-suppressed emotion within me, one that I may have never fully experienced before. Upon our lips meeting once more, the bond transcended mere physicality. There was an inexplicable bond between us, a connection that went beyond surface level. Not long after that, I experienced a profound inner change. Strangeness reigned. After all this time, I had completely forgotten what it was like to experience it. I felt like the luckiest lady alive right then. I thanked them. In the midst of his gasp for breath, Jacob looked lovingly into my eyes and smiled softly, saying, "Believe me, I'm just as happy as you are," before he continued kissing me. We hadn't been through something similar for quite some time. I blinked and muttered, "Please, Jacob, do not let this be the last time." As I locked eyes with him, the prospect of revisiting these moments with him consumed me. My hands were firmly clutching the couch as I opened them and beheld Jacob's large shoulders and unruly hair. "We will always experience life's most exhilarating moments side by side," Jacob assured me. Coupling with my body's quivering and tightening, it occurred simultaneously. It felt like an eternity and everything was occurring at a breakneck pace. In the midst of my ecstatic gasp, Jacob got to his feet before I could collect myself. He was also aware that our time was limited. A gentle smile crept over Jacob's face as he met my gaze. "Candace, I love you," he declared. My heart was already racing from the honesty and intensity of his voice. As he organized his belongings, he reassured you that you would no longer be alone. The weight of the occasion remained in his every gesture, but he appeared relaxed, as if he had finally realized a long-held dream. In a low voice, he announced his intention to wash his face in the restroom. Even though we were both still gasping for air, he proceeded with composed resolve. As he gathered his belongings, he left the room, and my gaze remained fixed on him. Feeling understood, cherished, and really seen was more than simply bliss. It was a lifelong desire fulfilled. Even though Jacob was in the restroom, I could still feel the warmth of his body on my flesh. It was as if time had stood still for the two of us. Everything was ideal. However, I was overcome by the physical and emotional tiredness I had experienced throughout the day. I started to close my eyes without noticing it. I returned to my spot on the couch and gently dozed off. Someone had put a blanket over me when I woke up. The thought that Jacob had covered me before he went brought a comforting warmth to my heart. The tranquility of the space served as a poignant reminder of his kind and considerate character. Even though I could faintly smell his scent and feel his presence, he had already left, and all that remained was the recollection of a night of closeness and comfort. A little time after that, I could make out Cooper's voice. "Are you Candace?" "Hey!" he yelled. As soon as I awoke, I beheld him standing before me. "Are you really going to sleep here?" he inquired with a hint of perplexion. Suddenly I looked at the clock. He was expected to come back around that time. I attempted to maintain my composure despite my racing heart. I frantically took Jacob's belongings from the room and raced upstairs, my heart racing with fear. I was unable to regulate my respiration due to the rapid beating of my heart. I stripped down to my underwear, checked my reflection in the mirror to see whether my hair needed fixing, and then made my way back downstairs. The TV wasn't yet Cooper's comfortable spot. Entering the room, he had scarcely paused. Sneaking into the kitchen, I poured a glass of water for myself, making sure he couldn't see. "Where on earth are you, Candace?" "Cooler," he cried out. I quietly made my way from the kitchen to the living room as soon as I heard his voice. Maintaining a steady tone, I said that I was only upstairs taking a little break. His expressionless hesitation and the manner he beheld me, however, made me uneasy. Something about the day seemed off to him, like if something wasn't quite right. Cooper started to ask me more varied questions in the days that followed. On occasion, I caught him staring intently at me, but otherwise, he seemed completely uninterested. The peculiar equilibrium only served to heighten my anxiety. Despite the lingering warmth of our shared moments, the mistrust in Cooper's eyes served as a sobering reminder of the peril that threatened our illegal relationship. Jacob paid Cooper another visit one day when he wasn't home. He stepped in while I was making coffee in the kitchen. He still exuded that irresistible charisma. There was an almost tangible air of tension in the kitchen as we stood close to one another while we made the coffee. At that very moment, I could hear Cooper's voice approaching from the entrance. My shaking hand sent a terrified expression to Jacob as I held the coffee cup. "Remain composed," I whispered hastily. Cooper glanced between Jacob and me as he entered the kitchen and noticed us together. Jacob, as usual, attempted to put a positive spin on things. To his uncle, "I had no idea you were home," he murmured gently. "I stopped by to get some counsel because I've had some bad luck with love lately." Cooper arched a little brow. "While I was away, I had no idea you were having coffee with my wife," he remarked. A hint of sharpness lurked beneath his otherwise placid tone. After calming myself with a long breath, I placed the mugs of coffee on the counter and pretended everything was fine. Jacob grinned with ease. Though he usually values your counsel, he felt it would be beneficial to hear his aunt's thoughts as well. Cooper appeared to believe him by giving a small nod, but he couldn't take his gaze off of me. On that particular day, Cooper's suspicions became glaringly obvious. He remained silent, however his inability to ignore what he had witnessed was plain to see. A few days down the road, as I was slaving away in the kitchen, I failed to see Cooper stealthily reaching for my phone. A look of complete comprehension crossed his face as he accessed the screen and beheld the correspondence between Jacob and me. Quietly, he set the phone down again on the table. However, circumstances began to take a sharp turn for the worst at that point. Cooper pulled out his phone and sent a text message to Jacob without showing any emotion. "Dinner is on the house tonight." It's brief and to the point. As he settled back down to read his newspaper, his voice remained unfaltering, although the room's energy changed in an instant. As I fixed my tense gaze on him, I felt my heart race. As a storm loomed on the horizon, the growing terror within me served as a warning. If you like this story and would like to see more like it, subscribe to my channel and enable notifications. I guarantee you that this is going to be an absolutely riveting tale that you have ever heard.